is this just right now, or is this a short period of time? And then we just have to ride this through. Do I persevere through this contraction, or do I pivot?
Welcome back to Life from Within. I'm Kelly Dwyer, your host, and today I have the pleasure of having Schiller and Marissa Boisvert on the show. They are co-founders of Accountability Works and co-creators of the Mindful Accountability Approach. Their work is built on the belief that non-judgmental observation drives change. The Accountability Works framework has helped professionals do everything from tripling their income, getting into top-tier MBA programs, and much more, without sacrificing their health or themselves. Welcome, Allie. Welcome, Marissa.
Hi, Kelly.
Thank you, Kelly. So happy to be here.
I'm so happy to have you guys on the show. So, mindful accountability approach and the Accountability Works framework, what's the difference there?
The framework is something that we developed over time, which is the actual process that we put people through. So what we do from week to week, how we approach each week, what's different over the process, why we do everything in sort of 13-week cycles, I think will lead into the approach.
So we named it Mindful Accountability because we wanted accountability to feel different. Oftentimes, people, when they hear the word accountability, they think of it as punitive, or maybe there's a negative association with it, even though we all know we need it and it's built into most things. So Allie and I were both drawn to the approach of accountability as a mechanism for learning. The mindfulness piece came in based off of observation without judgment. So we're using accountability as the tool that is helping us actually become more mindful and intentional in the actions that we're taking towards our goals.
I like that. And so that was a question I had. Non-judgmental observation drives change. How does non-judgmental observation impact change or drive change?
Well, I'll speak to that, Marissa. I think the idea is if we are productive, driven, doing what we're supposed to be doing, we're doing good. And if we aren't, we are bad. Very often our clients will come to us and say things like, I wasn't good this week, or I really messed up, or I failed. And what we're trying to build around the actions that we take or don't take is a approach of, why am I not doing the things that I want to do? What is really behind that, without the self-judgment, self-reproach, self-recrimination? Because actually that doesn't help and that doesn't make you do any better. And so this more compassionate look at, why is this hard for me, allows you to move through it and allows you to create the change much faster than if you are in this place of, I'm doing something wrong, or I'm bad, or I didn't do a good job, or there's something wrong with me. It's an empowering process that lets you move faster. And so that's why it's non-judgmental. So you're never going to come to us and get this feeling of less than.
And I can attest to that. So full disclosure, I'm a client and I get to work with Marissa. So I don't feel like you judge me. And you do ask me why. Well, why didn't you do that? So that's good. That's good. Now, the two of you have been business partners for close to 10 years now. And Allie, I think you started the business first, and then Marissa joined you as a co-founder. How did you two actually meet?
We met at a mastermind, and we were roommates at the mastermind. And we just became really fast friends and definitely kindred spirits, but we were on different coasts. I live in California, and at the time Marissa was in New York, and we stayed in touch. And the following year, I was looking for a coach to come in and support the business. And she was available, and she went through the training and she started coaching. 2 years after that, we had a major fire in Santa Barbara where I live, the Thomas Fire. And debris flow followed that. I actually live in Montecito, and so it was really impactful to our community. And during that time, Marissa really took over the running of the business. So following that experience, I knew that I wanted to partner with her. It was so seamless. She was just such a professional and really had a skill set that I didn't have and really needed. And also, we just seemed to see eye to eye on the approach, the clients, the care, the level of professionalism that she showed was almost where I wanted to be, but wasn't. And so I really aspired to embody and have the business embody some of the things that she brought to it during that time.
Oh, those are
Oh.
some really nice things. Marissa, have you ever heard her say all of these things before?
That little last bit that's new, but very sweet. Thank you, Al.
Life from Within. What we do here on the show is we try to surface the wisdom and the insight that we generate through career challenges, business challenges, work challenges. And the two of you have partnered together for a while. Congratulations, by the way, right? That's no small feat to have a business sustain itself over a period of years. So tell us, what was the original vision that you had for how it would grow, what it would look like 10 years hence?
Before I partnered with Marissa, my vision for the company was to have something that was sustainable for my life as a mom and that would pay well, and that I could also attend to the things outside of the business that were really important to me, and that I could do the work that I love. And when Marissa came on, our vision just got so much bigger. It was, let's build this, partially because Marissa is so systems oriented too, in terms of behind the scenes business building. My background's in engineering, so the framework was really easy for me, but the business building part was not as much. And she came in with that business acumen that was really important. At that point, we decided, okay, let's build something sellable. Let's build something that doesn't run on us. And I had already been really clear. I had renamed the business away from my personal name, Ali Schiller, to Accountability Works, because I didn't want to be a personality driven business. I wanted something that was standing on the process itself and what we were doing. And I think together, when me and Marissa paired and we spent some time on the vision, we really worked on that, because it's part of our program too, was that build something that was scalable and sellable. And that was the original vision when we came together.
Is that still the vision today, or has that shifted?
The vision is still to continue to build a business that is very valuable, and that if one day we decide to sell, we do. From what Ali said, that we established this joint vision, we just jumped right in and did that. We scaled the company. We brought on 4 coaches. So we went through that full process of figuring out there's a lot of great qualified coaches out there, but what makes a successful accountability coach, and doing the approach that we did. And we went through that process together. We figured that out. We hired 4 amazing coaches that worked with us for quite a few years. So we were building the blocks. We trained them. They all went through the training. They were successful with our clients. They were retaining. So we were just ticking right along, going, yep, doing all the things that we wanted to do. And then we had a global pandemic, which at first was great for our business. Actually, our business spiked during that time where people were home. So because we operate completely remotely and always have, there has always been the people that were interested in coaching and lived in various places and were online. But now we had a whole new pool of people who were home and had time, and maybe they had a little bit more time and bandwidth to work on things. So we had an uptick during that period of time, which is great. So everybody, is growing. And then at the end of the pandemic, we experienced another shift, which was now all of a sudden everybody wanted to get out of their house, to get offline, to travel, because they'd been home for 2 years. So that was sort of the beginning of the turning point of where we are today. We are still doing the same work, but it is now Ali and I, instead of having a larger team, and we'll evolve always, but it's more about us being back in the coaching seat and doing what we both genuinely love. This was something that happened during the process of going, okay, now we were just growing a business and growing it, and we were getting further away from the work that we actually love. And what happened that was out of our control really caused us to have to bring it back in, reflect on where we were, not only what is sustainable as a business, what is changing in the world and in the market. Of course, this is part of the deal. And then how are we feeling? And so we ultimately landed on shifting back and being her and I now. And that's where we are today.
Was that an easy transition?
No, Ali and I are really good about just talking about everything. That's not the thing. So we were very aware of what was going on, but we were both stuck because here we had these people that we loved working with. Our coaches were amazing. They were doing a good job. So there was no reason to change that. But then here we are up against some new challenges that we hadn't experienced that, like I said, were out of our control. Her and I being however many years into the business at this point and doing that reflection. And so we held there for a while of like, what should we do? And the way that I describe this is, every time I have to make a very big decision in life. So if it's a move or a business or anything like that, it's got to be a clear yes. And as soon as it's a clear yes, I can move forward. And I think her and I were both stuck in that, like, we should, but are we ready? And then we finally made the decision and made the changes. So it took time. If I'm just really open about it, is there's that emotional attachment that you have to people, and there's pros and cons with everything. There's trade-offs with everything. But at the end of the day, it's a business and it needs to make sense, and we need to feel extremely fulfilled in what we're doing. And that's where we landed. And so we're very happy with the decision, but it took us, Ali, would you say it was probably about like 2 years that we...
Yeah, I think when we reflect back, I think we probably could have made that decision a year earlier. So we maybe stretched it out. I think like when you have this plan of, okay, I'm going to scale, I'm going to hire coaches, I'm going to fill their time, and I'm going to do all of that, you really feel that's just the next progression of the business. And so if you go to do that and it works at first and you're going, great, this is awesome, and then you stop being able to do that, then you go, is this just right now? Or is this like a short period of time? And then we just have to ride this through. Do I persevere through this contraction? Or do I pivot and say, okay, we just can't fill your time right now, so we need to go in a different direction? That was like the question that we were having. And so I think for us, we kind of put the relationships before the books, the financial sense that it made. And that kind of hurt us. And when we finally made the decision, like, okay, we need to relook at how we've built this model. This model isn't working, but we actually have a perfectly good business if we do something different. So you can go overnight from feeling badly about the work you love to feeling like actually really good about the work you love. It's just interesting. I reflect on it and go, was that ego? That emotion, things that I hadn't really confronted before in the business because it just sort of progressively grew as we went along. And then as soon as we let that go, things got fun again. And I just did not factor that in when we made that sort of second vision of, I had something I really liked doing and it worked well, and it was fun to bring in Marissa, and we worked well together and we loved all our clients. And then when we all of a sudden tried to do bigger, we were backing ourselves into jobs we didn't like as much, doing work that wasn't as fulfilling, filling other people's time, which was challenging, creating a job for myself that was hard and didn't have the upside, the financial upside that maybe would have made it worth it, but instead it just caused a lot of stress. It was a hard lesson. Yeah. It's a really hard lesson.
And we are in the business of people coming to us with their biggest vision and goals and their hardest goals. So for us, it really is that point, like Ali said, when do you allow yourself to pivot? Because we know resistance is inevitable. And here we were. That added another challenging layer to have to really sift through and figure out. Ali just explained that process, but that was always in the back of my mind was, we're accountability coaches.
We got to push through. This must be a barrier. What's the barrier?
Yeah. And you see all the quotes like, don't quit before the miracle. And we all come up.
Last 10%.
That's why I was like, that clear yes is like what I was clinging to, because I said, okay, that has never steered me wrong. And I think Ali and I, we describe it differently, but we were both going through that process together. And we both just landed at the same time of, okay, it's time now. We got to do it.
Was that true? You both landed at the same time?
I think so. Yeah. I remember very distinctly having a conversation in my kitchen and saying, I'm ready. let's do this. Let's pivot. And Marissa was like, I am too. Let's do it. There was no pushback.
And so the decision entailed obviously some letting go of the coaches that you had on your team, right? So there was the relationship aspect of it. And then the decision was also about pivoting away from this business at scale in the way that you had thought scale would look, right?
The way we were marketing, the way we were enrolling, the way that we were doing all that was super labor intensive. There was just a lot of different things that went into it that we decided to just stop doing. We're just like, we're not going to do that anymore. We're not going to market that way. We just kind of cut a limb almost off the business and said, all of this stuff doesn't feel good anymore. I started the business in 2012. So this was all the way that people were enrolling and coaching and doing all of that through that next decade was webinars and funnel, all of this stuff. And we just said, you know what, we are going to stick to what we like to do. We do a newsletter, but mainly we just went back into our relationships, into our past clients, into referrals, into kind of an old school way of doing business that was really more genuine to us. And it felt really natural and started to fill our pipeline in a way easier way. So we almost let go of 10 years of thinking in that one kitchen conversation and said, we just don't like this anymore. Let's see if we do in a way that feels good. And what will that be like?
That was a significant conversation. So I'm curious, was there a pivotal moment? I know there was the kitchen conversation, but right before the kitchen conversation, Allie's process of getting to I'm ready, Marissa's process of getting to I'm ready. Was there a specific thing that happened or thought that you had or realization that you had personally that made that kitchen conversation what it was?
Well, one thing that helped us was the way our program is structured. We have a 1-year program and then we also enroll quarterly. So we always, at the end of the year, we're planning, we're looking ahead. We start that in the fall and we finish that towards the end of the year. So anytime we've had to make any kind of big decision, it's typically timed around before we go into next year when we're looking at enrollment next year. So we had that coming, which I think helped scoot us both along. That kitchen conversation very well, it might have been part of our fall planning. I don't remember the exact meeting we had. So that helped. But I think Allie and I have always been very good at being very aware of exactly what's going on in our business. So we're very clear on our numbers and all of that and always have been. So we were tracking that piece. I think we got to this point. I know for me, it was just like, okay, this is kind of getting insane. It's you're repeating and then you're ending back at the same place and we're just trying. You're just hoping that maybe it's going to change or something is going to shift or whatever it is. And we just didn't. And I remember I said that something along those lines of we're repeating this every quarter. We've been doing this now for a while, having this conversation. And we were just like, okay, it's time now. We need to do it. So that's my recollection of how that unfolded for me and us.
I think there's a funny aspect of the background of the business is we had this fire/mudslide, right? And then we had the pandemic. And then Marissa moved from New York to Asheville and built a brand new, beautiful home and was in her home for less than 6 months when Helene came through and demolished the area. Her home was fine, but it was a massive disaster in her community. And we were starting 2025 and we were ending 2024 on an upward. That kind of confused us, I would say. Because we were like, okay, we're out of the woods. We can keep everybody and everything's going great. We're in this awesome spot. And we have a lot of clients in California. And I think what did it for me or started to really do the path was the Palisades Altadena fires. We had multiple clients lose their homes that were in our pipeline. It was unbelievable. It was just one of those things of like, oh my gosh. We cannot catch a break. And obviously we are a minor sub way down of what our people were going through. But when I say clients, I'm talking about companies, and I'm talking about the pipeline that we had so diligently been building for the prior year. Because when you're going with companies, you have a much longer timeline. Oh my gosh, we just could not believe it. And so then that put us back on relying on the programs and the things that we were already doing. And so that just was like an eye opener, I think, for us of how tenuous a position we were in.
Yeah.
And how one thing could, and we needed to be in a more solid place. And so the conversation from that point till maybe July was, how do we recover from this? And then in July, I think was when we really started to talk to the coaches and say, something's going to change, prep for it. And then the kitchen conversation was in the fall, where we were like, okay, it's time. They're prepped. The other thing is that we were always transparent with them. So there was never any secrets. They knew. And so that part was helpful too, because we were truly a team. And that again was hard, but we were very, very, very transparent. So we had all these conversations with them throughout the time. Like Marissa said, they were really wonderful people, and we are still in touch with them. They still come in and work for us occasionally. And so those relationships are really, really good. But I think for me, that fire, and plus it's so close and it really impacted my community too, because so many people came up here, was just kind of the last big thing that made me go, okay, we need to be more resilient so that we can withstand these things. And we're not that resilient right now.
And that's a really good point. With the way our world is now, you have to think about, okay, so when the next pandemic happens or the next disaster happens, are we going to be able to sustain ourselves and keep the doors open and keep ourselves afloat and keep paying our bills and all of those things? So you had your coaches delivering. Were they delivering against companies? So you said you were building your pipeline with companies, right? Where you would close one contract. It would take 12 to 18 months to close, but you close the contract and then you have X number of customers as a result of that. But you also have your sort of consumer facing business where it's individuals hiring you. So your coaches, were they delivering mostly on the individual program and you were really focusing on building?
Yeah. For the most part, we had them working with our small group and private clients. So not the company side, but one we did. So resiliency became prominent because originally we partnered because of resiliency, but then scaling made us less resilient. And that was interesting. I didn't see that coming.
Yeah, that is interesting. It made you less resilient, more brittle, I guess, or more vulnerable.
More vulnerable.
Yeah.
Because now we had more expenses.
Yeah. Okay. So you're in the business of accountability coaching. Do you see what you two are facing in your business? Does it often get reflected in what your clients are experiencing? So in other words, did resiliency, has that become something that is a trend or is a top consideration for your clients in the work that they're doing for themselves?
I think like a lot of our clients work on systems and processes. I wrapped today with a client whose main kind of key team member just got a medical diagnosis that is challenging and takes them out of being able to do their role for a while. And we've been working on systems and processes so that there's resiliency. That's the purpose. So that if one person goes down, somebody else on the team can step in. And I think one of the things is that's super unsexy work, which is why people come to Accountability Works to do it, is because nobody wants to do systems and processes for their businesses. But it's something that's really common. We create that structure for people to do that boring work. Sometimes it's hard week to week, but when you have something like that happen in your business, you're so glad that you've done it. So I think in that way, we've always done that. And then just in general, having, and maybe you can attest to this, Kelly, but having a weekly check-in and the structure that accountability provides is kind of a calming to the chaos, because otherwise you might just roll with the waves of whatever's coming up. But this forces you to have this weekly touchstone to remind yourself that this is what I want to work on right now. This is what's important to me, because it's really easy to lose that thread that you might have seemed really important 6 weeks ago. It's really easy to lose by now, 6 weeks later, or wherever you are in your session. And I think that's helpful too. And that consistency builds resiliency. But what we saw in our own businesses was so challenging because we were coaching people that were just having a complete opposite experience. And so in some ways you're like, do I have imposter syndrome here because I'm coaching you and holding you and you're doing great and I am not, and I don't know why. And I just keep going like, should I persevere? Should I pivot? And honestly, as soon as we pivoted and everything got so much easier, I could see that the barrier was completely different than what I thought it was. And where I thought it might have been work harder, work smarter, do more, I realized it was let go. Listen to what's happening right now. Respond in the moment to what the current circumstances are. Maybe this is not the right goal. And I just could not see that at the time. Perhaps had I been my own coach, I could have given myself that advice. But since I was inside the bottle, I couldn't see it for myself. Marissa and I were just too close to it. We couldn't do that for ourselves. So I think what we provide to our clients is hard to provide for yourself.
For sure. Marissa, there was that question I asked perked you up as well. Was there a thought you had that you wanted to add?
Yeah. You asked, are they looking to build that resilience or strengthen that side of themselves? I can't say that they come and they articulate it that way. Within our framework, it's holistic, right? So we're looking at our entire lives and, we always have career goals, but also our personal foundation, the practices that we are doing that do absolutely make us more resilient in life. And so that is something that people are definitely working on. And I think one of the reasons why they're drawn to our particular framework, what I've observed is there's a lot more reflection on the importance of those practices over the last 6 years because life has thrown us all. It doesn't even matter what kind of business you have or if you're a professional that is working for somebody else. And in our program, there's been so many things that just have bounced us all around. And it's coming back to, like Ali said, having this weekly grounding practice and meeting to show up to, and then everything you're doing in between that without question made people more resilient, and they reflect on it just using their own words to describe that. So I would say I think that's one of the things I've seen since Ali and I have been on the journey getting balanced in our own ways. A lot of our entrepreneurs, everybody has a different type of business. So they're not necessarily impacted, or somebody might have been more impacted during the pandemic and not right now, or vice versa. But I think what we all see is there's just a certain amount of things that are always out of our control that are going to happen. And they could be on a global scale, or they could be much smaller, or just industry, or maybe it's your state changes a law and all of a sudden it changes your business. But it has just really emphasized the importance of paying attention to what we're doing in our lives beyond just checking the work boxes. And of course, building the SOPs and all the things allow you to be resilient. So that's, I think, why I perked up, because we've watched how important that is. It's always been important to us and the work we do, but it became critical.
Yeah. So to blend a little bit of what I heard from both of you, Ali, you used the word touchstone, the weekly calls. And it is true. As a client, I'm an independent business owner. And yes, I've got some contract help in certain areas, like with my podcast. But by and large, I build the relationships, I acquire the client relationships, and I deliver against those client relationships, right? Sometimes I might collaborate with someone else and we deliver together, or they bring the client and then I deliver for them. But I think the rate of change and the level of uncertainty that we're all facing provides a really compelling distraction at any moment in time. And it looks different from day to day. And so I think that the force of distraction, or the size of distraction, the energetic pull of distraction, has gotten bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And so having the weekly accountability call, it does keep me closer. It does keep me from straying too far from what I said I wanted to focus on. And then, Marissa, you talked about the personal resiliency. Absolutely. 100% important. You mentioned SOP. You were talking about resiliency of the business. So there's two layers to that. There's how resilient is your business. I mean, my business is me. If something happens to me, that's it, right? game over. But for a business that has a team and is scaling and has multiple revenue streams, that becomes more complex. And so various things might happen in the external environment and that will impact the business. There's many more surfaces that business has that can be impacted by external circumstances.
I just want to clarify for maybe the listener in what Marissa was talking about is that part of that accountability works framework is personal foundation. And personal foundation is the spot. You have your goals for the quarter and you have what you're doing, but personal foundation is a place where you put the things that are not necessarily goal related, but they're the things that keep you feeling good, keep you connected to yourself and others, allow you to deal with stress or build resiliency. Specifically, that's how we define it. So I'm so glad you brought that up, Marissa, because it's so true. It's literally part of the program. And it's where people put things like take 4 walks, meditate daily, drink water, things that you think are not that simple. But what I always find super interesting about personal foundation, especially with the type of people that are attracted to our program, which are typically very driven professionals who take work very serious and have a tendency towards burnout, is how important personal foundation is for them. Because they will put 90% into work and then they will tend to ignore those things that really drive them and fuel them. And that's why they get towards burnout. And so when they get into our program and we're actually holding them accountable to those things, they start to take better care of themselves in the achieving of goals, and achieving the goals becomes easier. They also start to value those things a little bit more because we hold them equally with their business goals. So it's not like one's more important than the other. And they start to have a lot more clarity and alignment. I kind of find it to be the magic of the program, the unexpected thing that we don't really sell, but that is why people stick around.
Yeah, because it's just so much easier to say the business needs me. People are relying on me. I have to do those things. I have to do those things. But you can always push yourself aside, right? Until you can't anymore. But it comes at a different place with that. Even people that have the most dialed in, you're exercising 5 times a week for an hour. It shows up in all forms. I think we can all look in the mirror and go, are we really doing the things to fully take care of myself so that I show up as the person that I want to be, whether that's with my family or that's as a leader. And that, like Ali said, is the magic. And it's a really beautiful thing to witness, and how much that ends up really supporting the business and the goals and actually the capacity of the person that is going through the process. It's really something to watch and go through. And we do it too. We're in the process as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Ali, you said something interesting earlier about when you were in that period of time where before you two made the decision and you were looking at the work that you do and sort of the experiences your clients were having, you were feeling almost like, is there a little bit of imposter syndrome here? I just want to say, I feel like it's 2 different things. It's 2 different things. The work that you do and the way that you show up with your clients, the value that you bring, the presence that you bring, the skills that you bring, none of that goes away or is compromised or invalidated by the personal challenges you might be experiencing in your own business. So I've had similar, because I'm a coach. And so I've got my own business over here behind the wall. And then I'm coaching and I'm showing up in the session and being present for my clients, whether it's a team or a leader. And these are like super capable, driven, high capacity individuals with a lot of responsibility. And I've had to learn for myself, whatever I'm learning for me in my own journey, in my own business, is for me to learn. And it has nothing to do with what the client's journey is and what they're on and what they're learning. And I am 100% solid in the value and my ability to show up and be present and know that I'm bringing value and I can apply my strengths and my skills and my own talents to helping them on their journey.
I really appreciate that. One of the joys of being in the place we are right now is actually getting to coach more and doing less of the other stuff that we were doing. That is the zone of genius for both of us. And so to be back in that zone of genius, that feels really good. If you're spending most of your time doing something that just isn't working, I think that shakes your confidence. To spend most of your time doing something you're really good at and that feels really good is a completely different thing.
Absolutely. Like it's the experience of feeling unsuccessful versus feeling successful, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. It's almost like there was a sense of relief that the two of you were able to have.
There was. And I think part of it was we were growing and we were working our way out of a job essentially, right? Because we kept going, well, we have to coach less, and less to basically show that this can run without either one of us. And then you sell and move on or whatever. Kind of the comedy of it is we really love coaching. That's our favorite thing. And neither of us are ready to stop that. We're in our prime working years. And that's something that we have recently just put that into words in that way. It's just funny. I mean, I think that's part of where maybe just life leads us where it needs to go. And it's not perfect. But in the end, wow, that decision that was so hard to make ended up being so great on the other side. It takes some time and dust has to settle. And I think it takes a few months sometimes to really feel or see the change that comes from a big decision. And we're there now. And we just go, wow, all right, well, the learning is we probably would do it sooner next time. We wouldn't give ourselves 2 years to sit with it.
Yeah, the hindsight 2020 vision. I'm curious, how are each of you bringing that learning? So, Allie, you had said realizing maybe this isn't the right goal. I would imagine that sometimes happens with your clients. So, how are you bringing the learnings that you two have experienced through your own business into the work that you're doing with clients now?
Well, it's funny. It just came up because we're wrapping a session right now. So we're in week 12 of our one-year program. And there were goals that people set. And I specifically asked, do you feel complete with this goal? Because they set the goal and then they realized a few weeks in, this is not a good use of my time. This is not what I want to be doing. And that goal was specifically around AI. So it was kind of funny. It's the new shiny thing. And we should learn it and we should apply it to our business. And it became very clear that it was going to be distracting and it wasn't important compared to the other things. One of the things we always ask is, do you feel complete with this goal? And they said, yes, I feel complete with this goal because I learned it wasn't a good goal.
Yeah.
And a big thing that we repeat a lot is that trust the wisdom is why you set the goal or set the commitment each week. If you don't do it, if you don't commit to that goal for 12 weeks, or you don't commit to that weekly commitment, you will not get the information that you need to make that decision. So I love hearing that. But that person spent a quarter gaining information and data, or however you want to describe it, and now can say that from such a solid place. That changes how we feel moving through life. So I love hearing that.
I think I already knew that you could set goals that weren't the right goals and that it would reveal itself. I think I have known that for many, many, many years. I think personally, I had not experienced it. And also with vision. So vision is the driver behind the goals. And so you set this vision and your vision is aligned. From there, you set goals that are aligned with your vision. And I think for me, vision is the pure place. Vision is the place that is the dream. It's the thing that only you can see. And the goals are just speaking to that. And I think what I learned in this process was I wouldn't let go of the path. I just wouldn't let go that I had the path nailed because the vision really hasn't changed so much. Marissa and I recently revisited vision and we were like, no, still the same. But that wasn't the path. And that was clear. And I couldn't let it go, even though I coach people all the time. Don't get stuck in the path. There's many, many ways that this can come about. And I think what I learned was it should feel good. It doesn't have to feel good all the time, but And it won't. But in general, pursuing a goal should feel like something you want to do. And if
Yeah.
it doesn't, it's not the right one.
Yeah.
And for
Yeah.
some reason, I got really stuck in perseverance, ego, keep going, don't let go. It was just a hard lesson.
I would like to note that Allie is a Capricorn and I'm an Aries. Now, this is important to note because when I first met Allie, I've had goals since I was, and I was like, okay, I was definitely the fly by the seat. I'm a different woman now, but I was fly by the seat. I'm the fire, the all over. We were joking about this week, but it's serious to an extent. That is a defining part of you. And I also, it was one of the things that I was really drawn to her at the beginning of our partnership. I think we both have learned so much from each other. And so I'm really glad you spoke to that because it's true. It is very real. And it was a few years ago when Allie was talking about it, not feeling good all the time. I was like, I feel like we're just hiking and we're just going up and we're going up and we're going up and we're having a little snack. But I just want a vista where we can sit and have a sandwich. And it was like we weren't never getting there. And I feel like now we're on the bench. We're like eating a sandwich, There's always work and you're going somewhere, but there's a little bit of this reprieve. So when you said that earlier, Kelly, about the relief on the other side of the decision, it's so true. It's very true.
So we've been on a journey today. Allie and Marissa, thank you. This has been a wonderful conversation, and I feel like we could talk all day. If people want to follow up with you or get in touch with Accountability Works, where do you want them to go?
You can go to our website, accountabilityworks.com, and you'll find a whole bunch of free resources. There's a quiz, a procrastination quiz you can take if that resonates with you. And then we have the Accountability Action Plan, which you can download, and I think it'll be in the show notes. That action plan is what we do on our planning calls. So it's how we kick off a session, what we ask, what your takeaway is from a planning session with us so that each one of our clients will leave the call with those questions answered about what their vision is for the quarter, what goals they want to work on, and what commitments they want to make for that first week. And then, of course, you can just reuse it week to week and keep track of what you're working on. So that is the Accountability Action Plan, and it'll give you a good taste of the work that we do and how we frame goals, commitments, vision.
And that's free. And you can download that at their website, accountabilityworks.com/action-plan. So I'll put that in the show notes.
Thanks so much for having us.
Thanks for making it this far. It's fun to watch Allie and Marissa interact, and you can just tell that they work really well together. They complement one another well. And I wish them a lot of luck and continued success in their business. There are a couple things that were said in the episode that are sticking with me. One is this concept of burnout and how a lot of their clients come to them because they are high achievers and they work, and they forget themselves and then end up burnt out. And so part of the Accountability Works framework adds in this element of personal foundation. So one of the goals that you work towards is to help create that personal resiliency, that personal foundation from which to act in your business. And I think that burnout can happen a lot of different ways. It's not just the person that works in their business and forgets themselves. It could also look like someone who they have a business and maybe there are some important but not urgent things they want to get done, but there are other areas of their life that call their attention too. And without strong boundaries and without some support around accountability, it's easy to forget the self in the sense that what I want in my business needs to be attended to in addition to all of these other things in my life. The second thing, when we were talking about personal foundation, when Marissa was explaining it, it struck me that there are some similarities in the work that I do with clients around building agency toward taking action toward their vision for the future. You can learn more about that in a recent episode that I published about the change equation, change formula. It's the one most recently published. If you're interested in learning more about that, go listen to that episode. All right. Thanks for listening today, and we'll see you next time on Life from Within.